All right, let's go over the low back, some of its referral patterns, and places that you'll be doing self-treatment. So, in general, this is the lumbar spine. Some landmarks that are important just to kind of know as a reference. You don't have to memorize it, but if somebody has told you that you have a lower lumbar issue, like L4-5, L5-S1, good landmarks to know where that is if you find the top of the hip and come over. This is L4 right here. So L4-5 facet joint and then L5-S1 facet joint. A landmark if you come straight across from the bottom of the rib cage is that it's generally right at L2, which is this guy. So this is your L1, L2 facet joint, L2, L3 facet joint. So if I'm ever talking about extension or movement at certain levels, just know kind of roughly where that is. So based more off the bottom of the rib cage, upper lumbar, based more off of the top of the hip, lower lumbar. Okay, things to also note are where those levels actually refer to on the body. So where I was just naming off numbers, L1, L2, L3, L4, L5, S1. Okay, when you are talking about more of an upper lumbar involvement, people tend to complain more about that discomfort across the top of the hips, maybe coming down around to the front of the hip or even into the groin area. When people are talking a little bit more of the L3, L4, that mid lumbar, they get low back and then kind of that achy butt cheek comes around to the front of the thigh. And then when we get more into L4-5, it's that kind of center of the butt cheek, really achy, comes down maybe side of the leg, kind of maybe IT band area every now and then, or complaints of knee pain. And then the farther down we go is usually more lower lumbar involved. So if it goes to the big toe, it's going to be more L4, L5 with the other guys, and S1 to the baby toe. So that's just a general overview for you. Key muscles to be aware of with low back pain. So let's go ahead and start with the deepest layers. We're going to look at hip flexors and quadratus lumborum and the diaphragm first, okay? So whenever you hear the term hip flexors, generally people are talking about these two muscle groups. This is the psoas that comes up to the spine. This is the iliacus. They combine into a common tendon and are frequently called your iliopsoas. But when I have you working on self-treatment, if I say we're going to be doing a psoas release, that ball is going to be placed about halfway between the top of your hip bone right here in the front and your belly button, which is around here. And it would be sinking into this muscle tissue. Or if I say more iliacus, you're going to pin it kind of right here to the inside of your hip bone to pin that against that inner bowl of the pelvis. Other key things, quadratus lumborum. These are all very deep layers. I'll show you again from the side. So this one, when I have you working on that self-treatment, it's for coming in a little bit from the side, but between the top of the hip and the bottom of the rib cage, as you see where it connects. I prefer to come in from the side and lay on my side, because if you can see, this is the deepest layer. This is the spine, and this is several inches deep to all the other muscles. So it's easier to hit this guy from the side than coming through a ton of other musculature. And let's go ahead and add on. So you'd have to sink when I say that you're working on these things, you have to be aware that you are sinking through a lot of other tissues as well. So we'll add on the rest of the back muscles. When I talk about the side of the hip with self-treatment, right here's your glute med. You lay on this guy on your side. You can also lay on your back and just kind of angle your body, rotate your knees over and put pressure there, but that is your glute med. When I'm talking more about kind of your tenderloins, this is your lat, so I'm going to take that off. Well, I say that, I can't reach my off button. Okay, and I'm going to take off one more. These guys. When you feel on your own back, it's those nice, long, kind of cylinder feeling muscles here. When I have you doing self-treatment where you put 2 tennis balls in a sock, the sock is so that the middle part between the balls aren't just pushing right at your spine, and you're getting a nice deep massage here. Okay, So that is a general overview of the low back and muscles that I typically have people address. Common patterns that I see are going to be, and we get back to these deep levels, typically if somebody has a QL that's a little bit mad on one side, they tend to have a little bit more irritation on their hip flexors on the other side, just different lines of tension that it kind of pulls. So definitely if you're having low back pain on one side, don't forget to check that hip flexor on the other side. Last thing I wanted to show you is the diaphragm, which this entire thing is your diaphragm. It is underneath your lungs, okay? So it pulls down and breathes air in, pushes out air. But if you can see, it attaches pretty low and it has some fibers that overlap up in here with hip flexor and QL. And just in general, lots of sitting. This guy just doesn't get very stretched out. And if you don't do a lot of cardio activity to really exercise this muscle or work on deep breathing through your diaphragm, it can get, just like any other muscle, get a little bit of tension going in there. So when I have you working with a ball to release that, you'll be coming just right underneath the rib cage on the front, and you can lay on it, you can pin it against a wall. And then you just want to really, when I'm talking about working on deep breathing, you want to think about expanding your rib cage side to side and front to back down here, and avoid raising it here. So there's your general overview. Hopefully that gives you a nice good visual of where some things are and why we're focusing on them.